Welcome to the Teachers Need Teachers podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kim Lepre, and this is the podcast for new and beginning teachers who don't want to just survive those first few years, but actually thrive. Today on episode 57, I'm rounding out my job interview series where I interview a principal to see what they're looking for when they're hiring a new teacher and also see how I fare when they give me a mock interview. Now, this series goes all the way back to episode 52, and the reason why I have so many of these episodes is because I wanted to give you different perspectives. I wanted you to hear different types of questions that you might be asked and to see that, I don't always necessarily have the right answers. I also mess up a little bit in some of these answers. But what's really important that I want you to take away from all of this is that you have a strategy for going into those interviews. You need a plan to showcase your strengths, to turn your weaknesses into future strengths, and to also figure out whether or not the school is even a fit for you. It's easy to just want any job that you can get, but sometimes during the interview, you can even get a sense of whether or not you would want to work at that school. And this is important if you get multiple offers and you have to decide on a school. So I just really hope that you walk away from this series being armed with your best answers, feeling confident, and just walking into that interview with your head high. So just for you guys, for my listeners, because I really appreciate you following me throughout this series and just for being awesome in general, I have compiled all of the questions from these different interviews into one single document. So I put the link in the show notes, and all you have to do is head over to that link to sign up. And not only will you get this resource with the questions, you're also going to get every other resource that I have created in one file, and you can download them and use them as you please. So be sure to head over to the link in the show notes, or you can also go to teachersneedteachers.com/57, and you can get the link there as well.
Hi, I'm Dan Kreines from the Leader of Learning podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Make sure to check out all the other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com. And get ready, because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1.
I have a really special guest for you. His name is Ross Cooper, and he's the principal at T. Baldwin Demarest Elementary in Old Tappan, New Jersey. And I'm pretty sure I said that correctly. He's also the co-author of Hacking Project-Based Learning, which is a book that demystifies and provides a blueprint for project-based and inquiry learning. Ross and I go into some interview tips that will make you stand out from all the other candidates. So here's my conversation with Ross. Now, when you are looking for new teachers, so what qualities for your particular school, what qualities are you looking for when you're hiring someone?
Yeah, so I think it's really a lot of it's about being a learner more so than anything else. I think it's easy to fall in the trap of only learning through the official initiatives in your school or in your district. So I want to know that the people with whom I'm working, are learners, and that they maybe either they go to conferences, they're on social media, they're reading blogs, they're writing blogs, they're on Amazon. They're not waiting for the learning to come to them. I think that's huge. One of the most important things, if not the most important thing, when it comes to hiring. I also want to, and this is something that you really can't quantify, but just somebody who's just a nice person. I always say to my teachers, if you're nice and if you're a nice person and you're a learner, that's really all that, that's what I care about, and, I just want people that are just genuinely people who are just nice to others, and that, I'm lucky enough to work with an amazing staff of teachers. I walked into a great culture, and everybody's so kind and helpful and caring. And that's what I want to, that's what I want to see continue in the building in which I work. So it's all about being a learner, but also being a nice person and a good fit for the culture. So, those are probably the two first things that really come to mind, um, when it comes to the hiring process.
So if I were being interviewed today, going to segue over here, what are some of the questions that you would ask me?
So I typed up 5 questions. I think they're a little bit unique, but for the sake of your listeners, I think they're also questions that they're probably likely to hear as well, or close to questions they're likely to hear as well.
Okay.
So first one is just tell us about yourself and what brings you here today.
I have been teaching for 17 years mainly as a middle school teacher. I've taught 5th through 12th grade, but my passion is teaching specifically 7th grade. I started out as a band teacher actually, and about 10 years ago, I transitioned over to teaching English. And since then, I found that I've been able to be more innovative and I can incorporate technology, and I've been able to really grow and reflect on the way that I teach so that I can be more impactful with my students. One of my favorite populations to teach are students that have IEPs, so they have like ADD or ADHD. And in fact, for the most part, my classes have about 50% of students with IEPs. And I love being able to provide them extra support, but also make them feel like they actually can grow, because a lot of them have a lot of self-defeating, mentalities. So I've been on that journey with trying to learn how to improve my practice through standards-based grading, through using more engaging strategies in my classroom. And I came to your school because I saw all the great things that you're doing, and I like the smaller environment that your school provides.
So I think that if anything, the emphasis on the IEP students is wonderful, because when you say that, what is everybody in the room going to say or think? They're going to think, "Aw," that type of thing. Like she's sensitive, she's empathetic, and I think the more awe moments we create is great, right? So so we always know that this question's coming. You started off by talking about your career path, right? Like where you are in your career. Another option too would be talk about, like, what brings you here today as far as like your family or something like that. So for instance, when I was asked this in my interview, like, it's coming, right? So it's like I made sure to talk about, at least plug my adorable nephews and my niece. Or I think at the time my niece wasn't born, so it was just like my adorable nephews. And what does everybody think? Oh, he's like a family man, like that type of thing. So you're creating these little moments where people can identify with you. Um, just like you do, like, this is going to sound weird, but like when you're hitting on someone at a bar, right? Like you're looking for those commonalities that you could latch onto and say, hey, this person's like me, and that's kind of what you're doing, So the more of those opportunities you could create through that question or any question, I think it's a great thing. But I think what you did was you kind of molded it in a way that fit that really told the story about the type of person that you are, and that's a beautiful thing. And you kind of already started on this one a little bit towards the end. Why are you a good fit for organization?
I am, well, I definitely find myself to be extremely reflective as a teacher. I'm never really satisfied in the sense that I know that I can always do better. So, for example, when I decided to start standards-based grading about 6 years ago, I kept trying to do it, and then I would sort of give up and I would get frustrated. But in the back of my mind, I knew that it was best for students. So I knew I was really doggedly determined to make it work in my classroom. So I know that I am always trying to innovate and become a better teacher, but I'm also a really good colleague. And I think that's important, especially with my PLC. I try to help other teachers where I find that when they're struggling. So it could be something maybe happening in their lives and they just need a little bit of extra help and support, or with a brand new teacher who doesn't really know how to teach a particular standard, and letting them have, some of my resources, but also challenging other colleagues in terms of making them reflective as well. I think it's important that we all hold each other to a really high standard, and not an unreasonable standard, but we hold each other to a high standard professionally so that we can benefit all of our students. So in addition to being, a lifelong learner, I'm also, a really good colleague. And also I know that I'm fun in my classroom. My students absolutely love being in my class. They may hate reading and writing, but they just run to my classroom because they wonder, what other funny thing is Miss LaPree going to say today? And I love doing that because I sort of feel like I trick them into learning. So they may not necessarily know that they're learning how to write a 5-paragraph essay, but they follow along. I use funny examples. I use a lot of puns. I make fun of myself, and in the process, all of a sudden now they can do this when they felt like they couldn't before.
Awesome. So yeah, I think it's great. You basically use that as an opportunity to, like, I'm sure when, we all walk into the interview saying like, I want to make sure that they know this about me before I leave. Right. So, and I think you definitely took that question. I mean, you could go in so many directions with that question, but you took that question, you molded it in a way to kind of get out to your audience what you wanted them to know. So, and I think that's really like having our strengths. Having our strengths in the back of our head like that is really important, as we're starting, because we don't want to walk away without our audience or, whoever's in the room not hearing what those strengths are. So something to think about when we talk about our organization, basically, from an administrative point of view, I want to know that that you specifically want to work for me or you specifically want to work at my school. So, and that just really comes down to research, right? Like looking at the website, maybe Googling the name of the principal, seeing what comes up, leveraging social media. What I used to do was Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, just looking for something so I could drop some hints every now and then that I researched the place. And I want to work here because of, I found out that they do, a character education committee and I'm really into that, or, whatever it might be. Because at the end of the day, really, for the most part, 99% of the time, it's one of like several jobs that somebody's applying for. Right. And we kind of know that, especially when you get like cover letters with the name of the wrong school on it,
God.
which happens. So like we know that happens, but you kind of want to fake it as much as possible as a courtesy because anytime we're sitting here and interviewing somebody, it's people are putting in the time and effort on both ends. And you want to make sure that people like really appreciate your school and your organization.
So like catering some of my answers to specifically that school.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
In short, yes. And in short, make sure to look at the website, make sure to look at the social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also by looking at the social media, it gives you a sense as if you want to work there too, unless you're really desperate for a job and you'll take anything, like you're interviewing on both sides of the table.
Right.
So you might look at the social media and see some of the things that goes on. You might disagree with it. Or for instance, if there's no social media presence at all, I wouldn't say you probably wouldn't want to work there, but what does that say about the school or district if they don't have social media at all?
Right.
In this day and age. And a lot of schools and districts are like that. It might say they're not progressive. It might say that they're top down because somebody put a stop to it because of the what ifs, But I think, if in a lot of schools and districts, what you see on social media is very indicative of like what else you might see in the district going on. Next one, how do you grow professionally?
How do I grow? Okay. So first, in terms of growing professionally, I am definitely, like I said before, reflective. So every semester I look back and I think, okay, so what worked and what didn't work? What do my students still need to work on? And what do I need to learn how to do better? So it's constantly evolving because I feel like if I just teach things the exact same way, my students are never going to improve. And this actually happened to me when I was teaching band, where I stopped trying to grow professionally, not on purpose, but I wasn't really interested in becoming a better band director. And that's when I knew that it wasn't a right fit for me and I was doing the students a disservice. So I have much more energy and passion into learning how to be a better English teacher in terms of learning, different techniques such as how to do novel studies or literature circles and how to add more reading and writing in terms of real world experiences for them. So researching things like project-based learning or researching how to do Genius Hour without feeling like I'm not being a teacher. That was a big one for me where I felt like I wasn't really teaching. So just trying to be innovative and trying new things, not for the sake of it, but because I felt like it would make sense in my classroom and that my students would be more engaged and that they would find the learning experience meaningful. So that's one way. And another way is I don't attend necessarily a lot of in-person conferences as much as I would like to, but I do, if they have like at ISTE, they have an option to stream it from home, or I will go and just read as much as I can online to try to just learn as much as I can.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so I'm starting with, like you gave a specific example, and that's something we haven't mentioned yet. That is huge, because I remember when I interviewed initially, this was when I was trying to get my first teaching position. I remember they gave me like a question. I forget the question that it was, but I remember the district. And basically I gave them this like picture perfect theoretical answer in my mind based on research. Mm-hmm. But the question was like, it started off with based on your experience, blah, 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 blah. And I gave an answer based on research because I couldn't speak to my experience. So afterwards, after I answered it, I knew it was a good answer, but he goes, and that was based on your experience, as if he was like questioning my answer. I was like, sure, and I think there's a fine line there, whereas we want to make sure that we incorporate the two, but anytime we could illustrate what we're talking about through stories, to say, hey, like not only do I say that this is best, not only have I read, Ken O'Connor, and do I think standards-based grading is what our students need, but here are specific examples of how I've tried it out in my classroom. And not all the time do we want to paint this picture that all of our examples are perfect, but at least we're saying, hey, like I'm doing what I believe. I'm not all talk. Mm-hmm. So I think anytime you can incorporate specific examples, I think that's great. The professionally one is tough because, it's something I always ask. So anybody who's listening now, if you're ever in an interview with me, I'm going to ask this. I want to know how you grow professionally. But a lot of times you get very vague answers. Because honestly, and this isn't a knock on anybody, but I don't think a lot of people intentionally grow professionally other than the experiences and initiatives in their own schools and districts. I really don't think a lot of educators actually read books about education. Once again, not saying that to be nasty, but that's what I've experienced. So for instance, I'll give you an example. Not too long ago, I was, on the giving end of an interview, and somebody was talking about, kind of in a vague sense, the articles that he read. And, I just said, oh, just tell me, and not to be mean, but I was like, all right, could you talk to me about a specific article that inspired you? And the person looked at me like I was crazy and he couldn't, he's like, no, sorry, I can't think of any. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? So like, and that happened in the middle of an interview, and it's like, really, like you can't, there's nothing, so not even the name of somebody or something. So I think it's important to, with all questions, but also this one as well, to be very specific.
Now, if the candidate hasn't read a lot of books or a lot of articles, what would be an acceptable answer to that?
Well, any way that you could learn, right? So even something like Twitter or social media, or even just talking about, hey, like, as a student teacher once a week, we had common planning time, and I would sit in on the teacher meetings, and and here's what I got out of it. Okay. Here's one thing I learned. Just a couple months ago, it was a Tuesday, and I was sitting in a meeting, and they were talking about, whatever it is, project-based learning, and this tip really caught my attention. But something. Because I always think like best case scenario is one, that you're reflective, that you're willing to accept feedback, that you're teachable, but also, it's my own personal bias. I feel like we should be reading books. I think the deeper learning comes from books. But if you can't do that, once again, that's my bias. That's how I feel. If you can't do that, then, do something.
Okay. Because I could see, especially a teacher who just got their credential thinking, I've been becoming a better professional by being in college, and I haven't had a lot of time for extra. So,
I get what you mean. Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of how they can answer in a way that still highlights them as a candidate, but isn't them lying and making up all the stuff that they that they're supposedly done.
I think anything on the internet, blogs, articles, social media, student teaching might be another one as well.
Okay.
I think student teaching might be, because everybody's gone through student teaching if you're applying for a job.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Next one.
Okay.
Talk to us about a time in which you made a mistake and learned from an experience. Or I should say, learn from an experience, via a mistake.
Right.
You get the idea?
I do.
Mhm.
I can think of one specifically in terms of communicating with a parent. So I had a parent, I sent out a newsletter and weekly email to the parents talking about what's coming up and about grading and with reminders about due dates. And I guess my tone, I hadn't checked my tone on there, or even the fact that in one sentence I had put several words in the sentence in all caps, more for emphasis, just because it was a looming deadline. And I had a parent who was really upset, and so upset that he went straight to my principal instead of talking to me. And he said, "When you put all caps, you're yelling at us." And to me, that wasn't my intent. But then I thought about it, and I looked back at the email and I thought, maybe I should have had somebody else take a look at this. Maybe I needed to think about my tone and how I deliver these messages. And so from that, I did apologize to the parent because that wasn't my intent. And, I asked them, if there was anything else in the email that maybe might have offended them. And we worked that out because I think it's important to have parents as your ally. And then I also thought about how I needed to send these out so that parents feel like they're a part of it, not just like I'm talking at them, but feel like this is informative, this is useful for you, and I want you to be a part of my classroom community, and just being more inviting about it rather than just informational. So I did learn from that a little bit about being more diplomatic with parents, because I think sometimes we get into our academic language and we don't realize that these aren't teachers on the receiving end. These are just, parents who probably don't even have time to read your email. So if they do read it, you better make sure it's worth their time.
Okay. So this one is probably, in my mind, and this, once again, this is my opinion, it's probably an easier question, whereas if you're on the receiving end, you might look at it as a harder question. But all I really want to get out of this is probably two things. Is one, that like you've reflected upon what you did, and what you would do now. What you would do now is a much better solution. Maybe not what I would do, but a better solution.
Right.
Does that make sense? So like with an email, I always think, of course you want, and this is just my opinion once again, if you want to be more careful with an email, don't send the email. Like I always tell my teachers, pick up the phone. I can't, and this is more specific to how you answer, but I can't tell you how many, not a lot, but a good amount of parent phone calls I got this year, complaining about teachers, were because they didn't like a teacher's tone in an email. And I would just say to the teacher, if you picked up and, picked up the phone and made a phone call, or had a conference or whatever, like this wouldn't have escalated, So that's with dealing with emails in general. But I mean, really more so than that, what I'm really looking for is just like that you're owning it, that you're not someone who's like, well, I don't really make mistakes, or I can't think of anything, but that happens, or that you're, and that you're not wavering. Like you outright admit, I did this wrong. I shouldn't have done this. It was wrong because of X, Y, and Z. It was bad judgment. And if I were to do it again, this is what I would do. Just really owning it. And I think that's tough. And even if you don't want to own it, at least fake it like you're owning it. But I think that's just that whole idea of it's not really about the specifics in regards to like what happened. It's just like, what kind of person are you? Are you somebody that owns your mistakes and learns from them? That's really what you're asking. Are you somebody who owns your mistakes and learns from them? That's really what that question is.
And can they use student teaching experience?
I think so. I think so, definitely. I definitely think so. Because if you go through your whole student teaching experience and you're like, well, I didn't really make any mistakes, it's like then there's an even bigger issue.
Yes.
Because not only, are you not even a full-time teacher yet, but you think you're doing things perfectly. So, yes, I think definitely, but really just owning it, really owning it, as if you're somebody who then, when I'm on the listening end of it, I'm thinking, wow, like this person is owning it and learning from it. And I'm confident that he or she will take the same approach when it comes to other mistakes that are made.
Okay.
Last one.
Okay.
What do you do in your free time?
In my free time, aside from grading, because I am an English teacher. Actually, I don't do much grading at home anymore, but I do spend time with my family, and I blog. I have a podcast. I try to connect with other educators via reading their blogs or social media, and try to stay connected, because I feel like, well, I know that I don't have all the answers. So I'm always trying to find the answers from someone else who knows more than me. So I do spend a good chunk of time with that, and as well as just um, resetting myself with my family and friends, because I know that teacher burnout is a real thing. And I don't want to commit my entire life and my entire day just to teaching, because I put so much of myself into the school day.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, great answer. I think with this one, this is something I wouldn't be able to answer well
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have much of a balance in my life, which is terrible. But that's one of the things I look for, right? Is like there's a balance. Like you want to hire somebody who's worldly, who like, oh, just last weekend I was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and or I was at this museum, or I was at this festival. I think those experiences are important because they inform our practice subconsciously in many ways as well. So somebody who's worldly and does more than just education, but also somebody who also does more education than is necessary. So it's like, yeah, in my free time, I love to blog about education on my podcast. But I also make sure to relax, and, once a month, I make sure to go away for the weekend and I do X, Y, and Z, that type of thing. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
about, that balance, which once again, I would completely fail at this question. Um, but, but also, the balance, but also like when you leave school at whatever time you do, every day, like your learning doesn't stop and your job doesn't stop. And that's tough because we're all at different points in our life. But the odds are, if you're coming out of college, then you do have the time. Not everybody, I don't want to, paint too broad of a stroke, but, the odds are you do have time to carry on your job outside of the school day, at least to some extent.
I could see some people, though, listing things that, or not even knowing what they should say, because they might say, well, I go and, go to the gym, and I walk my dogs, and I watch The Bachelor. I could see a host of other answers that don't pertain to this. So you're just basically looking for the fact that they do professionally enriching activities outside of school.
With a balance on things that
Yeah.
maybe aren't necessarily directly tied to school.
Okay.
Also, something else to consider too is like if they're passionate about anything outside of school, because like it really shows that you're able to dedicate yourself to something.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're, I would say that, like, let's say you're like really into fitness, and like, and every morning at 5:30 a.m. I get up and I teach a spinning class, or whatever's trendy. If it's trendy, spin, yoga, whatever it is,
I have no
bar,
idea.
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. So what, or I do CrossFit's another one. But like I do this every morning before I come to school. To me that says about you as a person that, wow, like you're able to really dedicate yourself to something if that's what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you aspire to do. So I think it also, if you're just somebody who lays around on weekends and watches like Jersey Shore, then, what does that say about you? What does that say? What does that say? Like, how are you spending your time? And you try not to be too judgmental because everybody's different and we all need to relax. But there are a lot of like really type A personality people who, like, whatever they do, they really have to dive into it and dedicate themselves and do it 100%. And the odds are that if you're saying that you do that outside of the school, or outside of the district, or outside of education, there's a strong possibility that it will transfer to your work inside of my school.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a pleasure.
And if my listeners want to learn more about you and your school, where can they find you?
Me specifically, rosscoops31.com. That's like what I have everywhere. is, on Twitter, rosscoops31, rosscoops31@gmail.com is my email. rosscoops31.com is my blog. I try to blog once a week, once every couple of weeks about my job, about PBL, about inquiry-based learning. And my district website,
it's T. Baldwin, right? Demarest?
Yeah, I'm trying. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick. I don't, because I have it bookmarked.
I can put the link in my show notes. Do you guys does your school also have a Twitter account as well?
Oh yeah. So #OldToPanProud. That would be perfect. So we have a hashtag that we use on Instagram, on Twitter to an extent, and on Facebook, the Old Tapan School District Facebook group. So, and the website is TBD, as in T Baldwin Demarest, .oldtapanschools.org.
Okay.
Is the website, and for our school district, tbd.oldtapanschools.org. If you're familiar with the New York or New Jersey area, it's at Tappan Zee Bridge. For one reason or another, the school district is pronounced Tapan, as in Old Tapan. So it's when I went and interviewed the first time, I wasn't really able to know how to pronounce the district, but it is what it is. So yeah, Tappan Zee Bridge, Old Tapan School District, which is probably about 15-20 minutes from the bridge.
Awesome. So I'm going to make sure that I put those in my show notes so that my listeners can get a hold of you. But thank you again, Ross, for being on the podcast, and I hope that you have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. You too.
So I told you guys that was going to be an awesome interview, right? So here are my takeaways from my conversation with Ross. First of all, when you're interviewing, you want to find something that can make you relatable to your audience. I had mentioned that I like to teach students with IEPs, and that's something that, since teachers understand that particular population, they're going to be like, oh, wow, that's really cool that you like to do that. So try to find something that can make you a little more human and relatable. Also, you want to do as much research as possible on the school. So don't just walk in just knowing the name of the school. Go and Google them, look up their website, look at their social media, look up the principal and what they're tweeting about if they do that, or even the message that they have on the About page on the school. Really try to get a feel for what the school is about and what makes them special. That way you can also cater some of your answers to the questions, to that particular school. You also want to find a way to answer so that you can highlight your individual strengths and let the interview panel know what type of person you are. So you want to think about, if you're really into technology, then you want your answers to revolve around technology. If you're really into building relationships with families, then you want to talk about how you geared certain lessons or activities so that you can involve the family. Also, you want to try to give specific examples whenever possible. And I know that this isn't always easy when you are a first-year teacher, but even your teaching experience or observations can count. And you don't want to just give some theoretical answer. You want to have something concrete, something that you witnessed, even if it was your cooperating teacher, or something that you actually did during your student teaching experience. You want to paint a picture for them so that they know what you would do and how you would react in a situation. So I don't know if you guys have noticed that after all of these interviews, I've actually gotten a little bit better, considering that I haven't interviewed for a job in quite some time. And this is going to also happen with you. And there's going to be these commonalities between pretty much all of the questions that these principals and administrators have asked me. And so keep that in mind and have your answers prepared so that when they ask you something that's similar, so maybe instead of tell me about your educational journey, they might say, tell me about your teaching experience, tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you here. Those are all basically asking the same question. So have it prepared and keep it short and succinct. Don't sit there and ramble on too much because you just want to get to the point, and you want an answer that's going to highlight what an amazing teacher you're going to be in their school. So as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with me today. I know that this is going to be really useful for you when you decide to interview. I mean, maybe you're not interviewing yet, or maybe you have a job now, but in the future, you're going to want to interview for that perfect job. And I really hope that you come back to this job interview series to help you prepare for that. Now, if you have any questions about what I discussed during this series, or even better, if you did go into an interview after having practiced this, please email me and let me know how it went. You can email me at kim@teachersneedteachers.com, and let's chat about it and kind of get a sense of what you think, and maybe what you can do better for next time, which you did really well this time. So please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you again for hanging out, and I hope you have a fabulous week.